Welcome to the Primate Talk podcast. Here we have nuanced interactions with interesting folks undertaking unconventional endeavors and see the world through eyes that are not just our own. In the latest episode of the Primate Talk podcast, I sit with my friend David Emmanuel, also known by his stage name Dave, to talk about his journey with the world of music. Born and brought up in Bangalore, India, Dave was acquainted to the world of singing at the age of 6. What's interesting to note is him discovering his calling in singing and songwriting at such an early age. He initially started with recording cover songs at the age of 14. Keeping all his writing material stored away, he began to feel it was time to put out his own music before he lost himself and his sound in the process of covering other artists. Being inspired by the catchy pop sounds of Katy Perry, the sultry and sad vibe of Lana Del Rey, and the ever gripping songwriting skills of Taylor Swift, he began recording his own songs at the age of 17. Further drawing inspiration from music legends like Michael Jackson, David Bowie, and Madonna, he was finally able to transcend his passion into a career. Ever since then, his journey with music has been nothing short of extraordinary. David kickstarted his career in the year 2018 with the release of his debut album Silhouettes. In 2019, he released a soul video-based EP titled Reputation, Revenge, Respect on YouTube, which brought in plenty of new friends and people to work alongside. In August of 2019, Dave and friends formed an alternative rock band called Silent Screams, with him being the lead vocalist and frontman of the band. He has also been credited as the lead songwriter to 3 songs released by the band. In November of 2019, his second album, Blue Blood, was released onto all major platforms, becoming his most successful album till 2021, charting at number 40 on the Apple Music charts of India. Taking a short break, he released an EP making a bold statement about a topic still a taboo in our society. The EP Sex saw a different version of Dave exploring the pop genre and making bold statements and shocking both friends and conservatives alike. During the second phase of this lockdown, Dave wrote and recorded his 5th album, God Complex, which took the crown of being his biggest and most successful album to date, quickly crossing over 250,000 plus streams and still going strong. This album and its deluxe edition went on to chart on the alternative albums chart on Apple Music India at number 23 and number 27 respectively, sitting with the likes of Taylor Swift, Lorde, Lana Del Rey, Imagine Dragons and many more. In June of 2021, David garnered a whopping 1 million career cumulative streams to a discography of 5 albums and 200 plus songs. His recent release, Return to Saigon Avogada remix of his new album God Complex, became the 200th song of his discography. Apart from music, you can also find Dave working up exotic dishes in the kitchen. Speaking with him, I felt here is a gentleman who is extremely talented, knows what he wants, and is out to get it. What struck me as powerful was his self-awareness and a strong connect with his inner feelings. And needless to say, the courage to let out those feelings through this powerful medium. Dave isn't scared to be vulnerable, and surely this is something all of us can learn from this talented artist. Talking to Dave was surely a great experience, and I can't wait for you all to get on it.
There's nothing left that can be said. Mess in the head, yeah, that's so true. But I love the things.
David Emmanuel, we are live. Welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me.
So I have to tell everyone, David is, or Dave, for
Yeah,
the purpose
thank
of briefness, is a friend of my brother's, and they're doing the same course. They did sound engineering, and that's how my brother met Dave.
Right.
And how I got introduced to Dave was with this song called Real Friends in 2019. And that was the
Wow.
first song, the song that I heard, and it was so powerful. I really liked how you brought in that powerful clip from Julius Caesar, that play, and the
Okay,
build
thank
up
you.
and everything was just perfect. I have to tell you, I have to tell you this. I, on my way to office, I used to
Hmm.
listen to it on the bus like repeatedly,
Okay,
and I shared it with multiple people. It was so powerful. The
thank
second
you.
time I came across you was with the song Return to Saigon. And
Yes.
yeah, so there's this one time my brother just introduced the song to me, and I found myself humming to that song in the washroom. And I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell? Whose song is this? I don't, I asked my brother, like, I found myself humming the song, like, oh, is this your friend Dave? And he's like, yeah. And that's when I knew that I gotta catch hold of you before you get famous so that I don't have to go through
So
layers
this
of
will be like
managers.
first, yeah.
Yes. So this is fast forward to 2020, first Real Friends in 2019, and this one in 2020. So
Yep.
it was so good. And I'm so glad that you are here
Thank
on
you,
Prime
thank
Talk
you, thank you so
podcast.
much. I'm glad to be here. Actually, it's
Yes.
such an honor. Actually, I've been hearing a lot from your brother, like how hard you actually work from like the 9 to 5 job, and
Oh, yeah.
you actually fit in a lot of time to like get here, like on your weekends, and that's actually a very commendable thing to actually find
Yes.
something on the side also
Yeah.
while you're
You
being
try to hold
drilled.
on to, sorry, go on.
While you're being drilled, I mean, like with work and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Oh, yeah.
that's something commendable.
This is my last thread of sanity. I'm trying to clutch on to it.
Don't we all need that?
Yeah. So I have Dave, I'm really excited to have you here. Why? Because
Thank you.
I am I have tremendous respect for art and artists. I have, like, a personal inclination towards them, because
Right,
artists have a unique way of giving expression to all the things. One
right,
could look at science and how it objectively captures the phenomena that happens all around, universal phenomena, but through art, uh, the artists actually find a way to capture how uniquely these phenomena are experienced by everyone.
right.
And that could be through music or painting or any of the art forms that are out there. So I have tremendous respect for artists, because they give voice to things that are otherwise mundane, right? So
Right.
everything goes from literal to figurative, and this is the beauty of it all. Like, so I'm
Yeah.
super pumped to have you here, and let's
Thank you. Thank you
dive
again.
right into your journey, right?
Right.
Yeah. So okay, so, like, if you talk about your early life and influences,
Yeah.
two particular influences are noteworthy. You started at the age of 6, right?
Right.
And one is your involvement with the church. You
Yep.
used to sing, you were part of a choir, and I
Yeah.
know how it is, because even my friends who are Christians, they attend the Sunday mass. This is all I know. I'm sorry if I
Right.
don't.
That's okay. That's okay. That's
Yeah,
fine.
you can like fill me up.
I would. Okay.
And
So
Sunday mass, and they have beautiful voices, amazing voices.
yeah.
And second influence is, as you mentioned, was your mother's influence, right? She
Right.
was was a classical dancer
Yeah.
and a fond lover of music. So could you get into that in a bit more of a detail about how these two influences particularly led you to become such a great singer?
Sure.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I mean, like I already knew my mom could dance well, and
Mhm.
I mean, to be a dancer, you have to be something that's someone who can actually understand rhythm, and how they say it, like how they call it tal, right? Like to
Yes.
be on beat and things like that. So you have to be inclined with your ears and inclined in your mind, and you have to be sound of heart to actually understand something like that.
Mm.
So to actually see my mother be very inclined to music, and then I do have my dad's side relatives who are also I mean his brothers and their kids who are like into music and stuff. So it was very easy for me to actually look up to them, and actually know that I do have something that's close to music in here, and there's an environment that actually can hold me rather than like push me and be like, no, that's not something that you do.
Yeah.
So it was a very comforting, like something to land on rather than like just hard concrete, just smack
Mm.
on,
Mm.
like where you just have to think this is not something you can do. But I had that for a good chance, and I had a very very empowering teacher when I was in I think the lower kindergarten,
Mm.
and I didn't know I could sing. Actually, I didn't have a slightest bit of knowledge of what was singing and everything. And this one day we had like auditions, and my teacher, this teacher, Miss Bernard, actually, she called me up into the principal's office, and she said, you can sing. And I was like, I don't know. And well, I went on to win my first competition at the age of 7, and this was like at 2 schools back to back, and they were like, wow, okay. And we appeared in the papers and stuff like that. So it was such an honor at that moment, and I didn't know like how to react at the time. All I could say was I was very thankful to my teachers, and just my parents, just being supportive and everything, and mostly my mom, actually, who was just like, if you want to do music, go do it.
Right.
You don't have to
Right.
ask who or
Uh-huh.
where or like, what or anything. Just go do it. Just follow your heart, follow your dreams. And this
Right.
was what I wanted to do.
Yeah. So looks like a nurturing environment went a long way, a very supportive environment, even in
Yep.
terms of your, parents and your relatives from your father's side. A nurturing environment actually helped you, find out that, okay, this is
Right.
music is what you wanted to actually do at a very, so like you said, you won a competition at the age of 7. So
Yeah.
apart from, it's not just that you were introduced to it by your family, it was also that there was a piece of inner calling or inner inclination to it, right?
Yes, I would
So
say so.
no one was forcing you to do that.
No one. Yeah.
Yeah, because one doesn't have to love something to be good at it, because there are a lot of cases where parents force their children into something and they
Right.
become world number one athletes and world class singers, but they hate it.
But they
Like
hate it. Yeah.
yeah, in your case it's not like that. It's just, so this is something that I want to harp on, or like to get into a little bit, like
Right.
talk about your relationship with music, or like what at that age, at such a young age, for you
Yeah.
to have to choose it, but without someone having to force you into it.
Right.
What did you what was it doing to you at an experiential level that you actually considered it some to be considered it seriously enough to choose
Right.
it, right?
So basically, I mean, I started singing at 6, and at 9, there was this kind of realization in my whole life that I just wanted to, just stick to music. And for me, it wanted to be like, to hear like thousands of people just sing back my own words to me,
Oh.
and like, be drowned in that kind of sea of people. And it was minute dreams like that actually pushed me to go ahead with this. And I felt a lot of comfort in that. And for me, it was like music could talk to me and I could talk back to music.
Mm.
And I'm someone who actually kind of kept a lot of my emotions and a lot of my feelings to myself most of the time in my adolescence and stuff. So I prefer to start writing,
Right.
because that was the only way, like, rather than like be like a petty person and write, journals and like diaries and like, hey diary, what's up? I did this today. I don't want to do that. So, I was like, this is my life. This is my kind of story that I want to put out in the world. Sure, it may be a tad bit exaggerated and stuff like that, but this is who it is. This is me. This is exactly what I am. This is what I went through like a year back and stuff like that. So I think music and songwriting in general actually holds a very, very close and dear place for me. And I don't think I would have been here if it wasn't for like, songwriting to actually let out all my emotions and most of my secrets and everything. So yeah.
At that age, so powerful.
Yeah.
Yes. uh, so you also tried auditioning for, you mentioned the reality shows like in the stage and the Indian Idol.
Yeah.
So what age was that, and how
I
was the
was
experience?
I was 17, I think 17 or 18 when I
Uh-huh.
auditioned for the stage, and
Right.
I was 18 and a half when I auditioned for Indian Idol, sorry.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was a very grilling process. We had to wait there for hours.
Mm.
There was a lot of people, and there's like a ton of talent out there, and you
Mm.
have to be like, it's like a fight for survival kind of thing.
Oh.
So the stage thing, what happened was they actually shot, like, you've seen these videos where they shoot of these people, they'll
Yes.
talk about their families and stuff,
Uh-huh.
and they put all these inspirational music and stuff behind it as background music. So it was one of those shots, and they kept asking me, like, why are you here, and what's your dream, and who do you want to be like, what was your inspiration and stuff. So I kept answering that, and they were very pleased with it. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to see myself on the stage. And then boom, I don't get it.
Oh.
So, I was like, okay, that's fine. And this one time, my mom was begging me to go for Indian Idol. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, I'm not going. But I did. I surprised her, and I just like, she called me up, and I was like, she asked me, where are you? And I said, I'm at the auditions for Indian Idol. And she was like, okay, all the best. And the problem that happened was that moment I had a lot of stage fright. I still have a lot of stage fright. So when I went there, they actually called us in a group of 10
Mhm.
people each, and you have to sing with all 10 of those people being in that room.
Mhm.
And for me, that shook me to my core. Like, I was like, I don't think I can do this, because I didn't have the vernacular to stand up against singers like this. And
Mhm.
there were classically trained singers, there were Western trained singers, and I was like, wow, this is this is gone. And as it was supposed to happen, the better person got it. So they were choosing 1 out of 10. So it was a slim chance out there. So
Do-
I was glad that was still an experience. And yeah,
yes, it was. But do you think at some level, at some point,
yeah,
it was your fear that maybe, stopped you from getting there, or sort of paralyzed you, or
yes.
was it like something that was sure to happen? Because I think,
No, it was the fear. It was
yeah.
the fear.
Yeah, maybe if you were not paralyzed with fear, I don't want to like plant that seed in you, but just
I know, I
just getting to
know.
know the entire
Right,
experience, how it would have been, right?
right.
So yeah, please go on.
So, there's that moment where I know the song is coming out of my mouth. I know the words are coming out right,
Mhm.
but then my hand goes like that.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and people can notice that. And people in reality shows do not want someone who's nervous, and
Mhm.
they do not want someone who's not sure of what they're doing themselves. So,
Mhm.
it's obvious that when they look at you while you're singing and they see you nervous,
Mhm.
they make their decisions in their head at the moment. And,
Right.
they actually, I could see their look just like change from like,
Oh,
from a whatever 50 they had to a 0.
oh,
So to see that look drop was even more disappointing. And then I
yes.
started freaking out even more.
Hmm.
So that played a very big factor. And I still think fear does play a very big factor in my life.
Right. So are you planning to audition sometime in the future, or you're just totally going independent and doing your thing?
I am going
Yeah.
independent, and
Right.
I mean, hopefully, I do get signed to a label. That's the end goal, not the
Uh-huh.
end goal. I would
Mm-hmm.
say that's kind of the stepping stone of where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think a label would be like really great,
Mm-hmm.
because every artist deserves that good advertisement and a good promotion and a good sponsorship and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, well, that was definitely quite an experience. I have never been performed at such a big stage, so I can only put, just imagine what you must have
Right.
gone through. But
Right.
this is still huge, you know.
Right.
So if I were to put in figurative terms, for you, singing was the lead actor, right? At the time
Yes.
when you decided that you were going to be a singer, obviously there are other things in the background as well. Like you mentioned, you were a good athlete and
Yes.
also took lead roles in school dramas. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to understand how all these merged into a symbiotic relationship, right? So I am a firm believer in the fact that nothing exists in isolation. Everything just comes together,
Yes.
right? So what would you say you drew from these multiple aspects of your life which supported that lead actor you're singing? How would
Right.
you how would you how would you like talk about that?
So when I was, I think the vague memory of what I have of my plays was I actually played Brutus in Julius Caesar.
Ah, that's
So
why.
see, yeah,
Yeah, makes sense.
which actually was a very close, thing to my music. So
Uh-huh.
I wasn't the lead, and that
Hmm.
was kind of like, was I was a lead, but not Julius Caesar. Like Julius
Hmm.
Caesar had the biggest dialogues and everything
Hmm.
like that,
Hmm.
while Brutus just had to convince the Senate and stuff about like stabbing him and
Hmm.
going on forth like that. So it was things like that. And for me, it was, this thing is my role. Like
Hmm.
I wanted this to be mine. And
Hmm.
even though Julius Caesar was the lead role, I
Hmm.
wanted people to look at me. Like I do crave the attention. I'm not going to lie. I do want to be in the spotlight. So, it was something like that. And I knew that with music and, with songwriting and singing per se, I could actually be my own hero in my own world in a way. And,
Hmm.
no one can take that away from me. Like
Hmm.
in my world, I know what happened, and I'm speaking of my heart and my things and my emotions. So, I think that pushed me kind of to like think that, okay, you know what, this is where you can actually have the biggest lead role, and this is your lead role, and no
Yeah.
one can take that away from you, whatever
Hmm.
they say, whatever
Hmm.
they want to do.
Hmm.
So I think that, and I think being an athlete in school was just something that I loved, because people would challenge me like, oh, are you faster than me, and things like that. So, yeah, just how kids play around.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I did turn out to be fast. And yeah, and I would work a lot with like classmates in training myself with like high jump and long jump and stuff.
Okay.
And it was a fun thing, like process to actually work on. And then I had my brother, who was also like, a very good athlete in school.
Hmm.
So, they would expect me to kind of be on par with him. So it was something tough to actually be as good as him,
Hmm.
but I was happy with what I was doing.
Right, right. Okay. No, that's awesome. And you started recording at the age of 15, and it
Yes.
kind of hints towards, you being influenced by these popular artists that you mentioned, these music legends like your Michael Jackson, your
Yeah.
Madonna,
Oh
David
yeah.
Bowie, right?
Yep.
And I can assume that being indulged with these artists, there was something in their music that further propelled you to take up it as a career choice.
Yes.
Uh, right? So I'm interested in understanding that transition, that amalgamation of passion and career, and how these artists maybe, individually influenced you in their unique ways. Right. For you to be like, that's it. I'm not going to take up a side gig. I'm not going to take up a side
Right.
hustle. It's all music for me. So,
Right.
how did these music legends actually, inspire you to propel that forward, that journey forward?
So I think this all started when I was about 13, and I was listening to this album, and I was just like, I want to see the music videos of these. And then I
Mm,
went on the internet, and then I just checked out their music videos, and I was like, wow, these people are badass.
mhm,
And Madonna actually, she plays a vital role with like the inspiration, because if you actually read up and like watch her performances and stuff, she was someone who didn't give a damn about like what was going on around the world, in like what the world said about her.
right.
She wanted to be the most badass person who didn't give a damn about anything. And what mattered to her was her music. And
Mhm,
her music had that shock value. Her music had the vernacular to actually be called as one of the greatest singers or the pop
truly.
people ever in this world.
Mhm,
And there's a reason why she's called the Queen of Pop. So then there's Michael
mm,
Jackson, who kept giving us hit after hit after hit. And
mhm,
the kind of greatness that he reached
mm,
throughout his life
mm,
was something to look upon. And it was saddening, obviously, when he passed away and things.
mhm,
So it did play a kind of a vital role. And when I was like really young, my mom would like blast these legends on like these big boom boxes that we had at home.
wow.
And I wouldn't know the words, I wouldn't know any
Uh-huh,
kind of thing, but I would be yelling the tune, like I would be screaming and to like overpower the boombox, but it wouldn't
mhm,
happen.
mhm,
So my mom would just be like, yeah, this is Michael Jackson, this is Madonna, and some artists she never knew, because it was like those CDs or cassettes like that. And the curiosity led me to find who are these people who make songs like this that are so catchy that even if you're sad, you can't stop from like
yeah.
the rhythm gets to you, basically. So it was something like that these legends played very huge roles. David Bowie, like his songwriting is considered very weird, and he is considered very outright, and I like kind of things like that, like where people do not conform to the rules of society, like you have to be so thin, or you have to be so PG-13 kind of thing. Like, who gives a damn if you're listening to like PG-13 songs, and if you're under 13, that's your fault. So
Yeah.
I always want to be something like that. And
Mhm,
these legends do play a lot, like a huge role in my life. So I think up from the age of 9 till now, and they still do.
mhm,
So there's a lot of key things that I take from their discographies, their videos, and the kind of the speech that they give, or like when they win awards or like interviews and stuff. So I keep learning from them, and I keep learning that whatever they are, at the end of the day, however glamorous they are, they're still human.
mhm.
So it took them to be a normal person first, and then to be a superstar or a rock star or whatever. So it's also nice to see that at the end of the day they're still human. And I hope to believe that I still have that quality in me at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
And you talking about, some of the artists that, are pretty outright in their styles, right? You talked about Madonna, you talked about David Bowie. I feel like this has influenced your singing style as well. If I specifically talk about the album Sex, right? Uh,
Yes, yes.
you act as a beacon for freedom of creative expression for aspiring artists there, because
Right.
these things are deemed taboo I mean, still deemed taboo in parts of the
Yes.
country. And even, I do not know what the exact situation is, but even in different parts of the world, right?
Right.
And one can see how well you were received there, because you accurately capture the eternal human predicament when it comes to love and attraction. And I love the
Right.
album. I loved how you captured the that essence there.
Thank
So
you.
get into a bit about how it came by, because obviously what, first of all, this is something, like I said, it's taboo, right? So
Right.
you would have certain reservations as to why, whether you should push it out or not, because still, in our communities, our conservative relatives, like you mentioned,
Right. Right.
there'll be a lot of backlash. So first of all, what inspired you to make this album, and then how did you deal with those reservations, whether you should push it out or not? So
Right. So I think this was back in 2019. I think I was
uh,
talking to my friends, and I was just like telling them, like, I want my next album or whatever project I want to be something that could shock people. And
mm,
I was turning 21 the next year. So, I didn't want to be like, okay, I'm doing something that's taboo
mm,
in like an underage, like a legally underage kind of thing. So,
mm,
I didn't want them to think that. So on my 21st birthday, I just kind of realized that this is something that I want to use as a shock value kind of thing. So
okay.
I had told my friends about this, and like, they were like, what are you planning to name the album? And then I told them the name, and then they're like, dude, that is outright just too direct. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. And they thought I wouldn't do it. And
Mm,
I was just like, I was thinking in a perspective of a person who would, be in a kind of a relationship like that,
mm,
who would be a songwriter or a singer in that kind of a situation.
mm.
And I kind of, decided that that had to be the thing that could shock everyone. That'd be like, oh my God, that's his first explicit song and things like that. But, I do sing about a lot of taboo stuff, like, on my previous records and stuff. And I don't think people read through the lines that much to
Mhm.
actually understand that,
Oh,
okay, this is what it means.
uh,
But this time for this album, I decided to go all out. And I was like, this is what I want to name it. This is what I want to go with it. And this is the theme of the whole album and stuff. And I did it, and a lot of people were shocked. A few people didn't talk to me after that.
whoa,
So yeah, so I just had to deal with that kind of a backlash. And
right.
my mom was a bit taken aback, but she was supportive at the end of the day. She
Mhm.
came around. uh, and there were a lot of friends asking, like, wow, okay, this is a kind of a complete shift from your previous album.
Mhm.
So it's pretty cool to, like, see you touch the pop side a little, and a little
Mhm.
touchy subject as well.
Mhm.
So it felt good that there are people who can actually understand it, and there are people who still have that lackluster mind.
Right.
uh,
Truly.
so it was a kind of a milestone in like putting out music for me.
Yeah, but it kind of waters down at the end. Like it's
Yeah,
only,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Right.
you have to deal with it at the end of the day, and
Mhm.
they have to know that it's something that's normal, and people should be talking about it, rather than, like,
Yes.
having uh you know just weird friends just like grouping together and talking nonsense like this, rather than,
Right.
like, there should be educational talks about it. And
Mhm.
it's high time people did that, and rather than feel like they're being cornered into a thing with something that's taboo. So
Yes,
yeah,
it's the
I feel that.
21st century, and people still
Exactly.
talk about it in hush hush voices, right? In your corner
Exactly.
of the rooms. And okay, but what I'm interested to find out is, also, interested to know is, how did you reconcile with your religious affiliations? Like, did you sort of get any backlash from, the institution? I'm walking on
um,
a thin wire here, but
no, that's fine. That's
yeah,
fine. That's perfectly fine. I
yeah.
think I chose not to, like, affiliate with myself with them anymore,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because I chose a different path, because I was a very, very, very religious kid. You would find me in church like every week,
Uh-huh.
like every day of the week. I would be
Right.
confessing my sins and things like that. And at one point of time, it got to my head, like, why am I doing this? Who
Hmm.
am I doing this for? And there's only one life I've got to live. I can't just keep making mistakes and coming back and apologizing and coming back and apologizing and following
Hmm.
norms that I just don't understand. I mean, to each his own. Everyone has to, they have to have something that guides them in their life. And for me, I just feel that you can be your own self, like you can be your own being. And there are people who would disagree, and I don't want to, you know, have pitchforks up and
Yes.
with flames, torches, and stuff. So I would just prefer to be on my own, rather than like and if anything bad happens, just like oh, I pray to God and this didn't happen, or I thank God for this. I would rather thank the person who gave me something, rather than like oh, thank God for this, and then make them feel bad. Like daughters
Yes.
example, like the
Yeah.
scene that's happening right now. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a very, I think putting out that album was kind of my conservative relatives, I would say, from my mom's side and my dad's side. They, I don't think some of them liked it.
Right.
Yeah, so they were like, this is something serious. So for them, so they were like, they didn't have any comment, but I hope that it all waters down, as you said, at some point of time, hopefully.
Right. And how did your parents come around to the idea? Not, I'm not talking about the album sex. I'm talking about
Right.
you deciding to be your own man. And I know I completely understand when you said that making mistakes, you have to go every time confess your sins, and every time just do that. That process can be really tiring.
Right.
Making mistakes is a very human thing, right? It's
Right.
because there's a glitch in our system that we these things happen to us, and I'm
Exactly.
sure God will understand that. But how did your parents come around to this, with this idea of you being like, hey, I gotta put a stop to this, because this can be a little like a huge transition in their lives as well, when the child says,
Right.
hey,
Right.
I don't want to take up these values that you seem to
Right.
be propagating. Yeah.
As shocking as anyone might think, I actually told my mom first, and she was like, "Why?" She just asked me why, and I explained it to her, and she was very cool with it, and she was like, "Okay, sure." And
Okay.
I told her that just because you have your faith, she's a very staunch Catholic, so she was. It was very shocking to actually listen to her say that it's your life, you can do what you want.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was very pleasing and very comforting at one point of time. And we still have friendly arguments about the religions and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. It's a healthy argument. It's something like you would sit on a dinner table and just like throw jabs back and forth. So it's I would consider my mom to be my first friend, actually. So we don't have that mother-son relationship. We just like two best friends sitting across the room, and it's really fun. So she was very supportive. My dad, on the other end, didn't say much. He just like questioned me a little, like why do you want to do this? You just need some guidance in life. And I just kind of diverted the topic from like what it was and everything. So I just changed the subject. So my parents are fine, I would say.
Yes, I mean, looks like you didn't receive much of a backlash there. Like, there's
Right,
healthy band
right,
around the table, but
right.
that's pretty much. She tries her best to convince you, but then she doesn't
Yeah,
force you.
yeah,
Be
yeah,
like, hey, eat this, eat your peas.
yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, no, that's so different, because I've almost never heard of that kind of a thing. I've only heard of
Yeah,
backlashes. I've only heard of people like beating their kids up and be like,
right,
follow this.
right,
But this is so interesting. So not interesting, but this is so powerful to know that there are people like that who
right,
won't question you for who would let you make your own choices.
right.
So kudos to your parents there.
Thank you. I'll
uh,
I'll, I'll convey that message to
please do.
them.
Right. So okay, so you were recording covers for a long time, right? And you decided to make a transition to be like, I need to start my own stuff. So
Right,
discuss a little about that transition as well, from just recording covers to being like, I
right,
gotta write my own shit and
right.
record my own, drop my own originals. Yeah.
So the starting of like when I was 14, I guess I started writing a lot of songs, and to be honest, those are one of my worst. Like those are the startups. It was the
Hmm.
most cheesiest stuff, and like it was very kiddish kind of thing, I would say. But it's songwriting nonetheless, and I do consider that as one of my startups.
Hmm.
So when I was 15, I actually decided to go into studio, record a cover, and from there I just started going on and on and on. And I think up until the age of 17, I was recording covers. And there was this one time where I was actually singing. I'm not sure what song this was I was covering, and I just thought to myself, why am I trying to be like the people that I look up to?
Mm.
The people that I look up to always tell me to be my own self. So I don't want to be like them. I
Uh,
just want to be the first me.
uh-huh.
So that led to that. And I actually, when I was 17, like in 2017, I had met a few friends through other mutual friends. And this friend of mine, Nikhil, actually, he kind of gave tune to one of my songs, and it was so touching to actually hear my own words in tune. Like, I was bad at tune and making melodies and stuff, so he helped me a lot in that aspect. And he kind of gave me a soft spot for like the music that I had, and he
Mm.
understood what kind of vision I had when I was thinking of like making an EP or an album.
Mm.
And he was very supportive. So from there it started on, and I realized, wow, this can be something that's a solid rock.
Mm.
That it means something. Like, there's lyrics, there's
Mm.
melody, there's emotions in every word. So it has to be something. And if someone can feel that exact emotion that I'm feeling at the moment when I wrote it, that could mean something. Like,
Mm.
if I could be inspired by an artist who's like miles away somewhere in North
Mm.
America,
Mm.
uh, I can just make a difference in the person that I know in my own locality.
Mm.
So it was something like that, to make people realize that they're not alone
Mm.
with this emotion. They're not the only person feeling this at the moment, and there are other people too. So just music brings us all together at the end.
It
So I
does.
think, yeah,
Sure.
that kind of pushed me to like start my own materials and stuff.
Mm. Mm.
And then
So,
it drove me to like make albums. Yeah, go on.
uh-huh. So what was the first song? I'm sorry, I've heard quite a lot of your songs until now, but and
There is
there's a lot.
207 songs. Yeah.
Actually, there's a lot. So what was the first song that you like sang?
So you mean the cover or like the original?
The original. Yeah.
So there was a song that I worked with my friend Nikhil. It's
Mm-hmm.
called Zero Ground, actually, from my first album, Silhouettes.
Okay. Ha,
So
ha, ha,
that
ha.
was like like a big debut single, and people
Mm-hmm.
didn't expect me to like put out an original and stuff like that. They were like, "Oh
Right.
yeah, David's just a singer. He's just working on covers and stuff like that."
Mhm.
And I just decided to break that whole norm. And in
Yeah.
2017, I put that. Sorry, 2018. Yeah, I put that song out, and from there on, it just followed up.
Mhm.
And I kept putting back to back, back to back, back to back. And yeah, I think people are getting bored of me right now. So
No, I'm sure not. Yeah, but looks like you've managed to find a way to shock people somehow.
yeah,
People seem to have these conceived notions about you, like Dave is this that, and then you're like, boom,
yeah.
I'm different,
I
bitch.
hope so. I hope
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's important to bring up. One can see the traces of influence of some mainstream artists in your music as well. So I was listening to, particularly, if I were to bring up Insecurities, the song Insecurities and Freedom,
Yes. Yes.
I could feel some Taylor Swifty vibes there, right?
Yes.
And you
Yes.
also mentioned that you're a big fan of Taylor Swift, like the way
I
she
kind of turned
writes.
into I turned into a big fan recently.
Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Yeah. And then there was, and among other artists, since you're a big fan of Katy Perry, let's just devote some time to talking
huge.
about her. I'd like to listen to her, about her from you.
Right.
So what about her inspires you? Is there any song where we can see Katy's influence on Dave? How is it?
Katie's influence on me. I think there's a lot. I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot in like sonically speaking, and lyrical wise, I think you'd see a lot of similarities. But like, there's a song of hers called "By the Grace of God,"
Mm-hmm.
which was something that she wrote in a very, very, very dark time, and she just wanted to give up basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually didn't know who she was at a point of time. I knew the song, like I Kissed a Girl, and
Yeah.
Firework, and
Fireworks.
yeah, Firework,
E.T.
obviously. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't miss these songs.
Yeah.
So I didn't know who the singer was until like there was this period of time, I think in 2013, where I was I wasn't right per se. I wasn't feeling good, and I used to miss a lot of classes, and there was something that was going on in my life. So I just shut down basically.
Mm.
And so this one morning, like when I was sleeping, the TV was running and there was VH1 playing. And my mom and brother were going out somewhere. So, they were like, should I off the TV? And I was like, no, just let it play. That's this beautiful song that's on.
Yeah.
And I turned around and it was so good. I was actually struggling in a very, how do I say this? I was actually surviving a breakup, and it was a love song that was playing on the TV.
Mm.
So it was very ironic that something like that would be pushed into my face, like, hey, you know what,
Mm.
I know you're going through a breakup, but here's a love song.
Right.
And it was a song called Unconditionally,
Mm.
and that song just gave me chills, like when I was listening to it.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
gave me chills, and from there I found By the Grace of God, and then I was like, wow, this song's pretty dark, even though
Mm.
it sounds pretty good.
Mm.
Then I checked up, what happened in her life, and I got to know that she was feeling the same way that I was feeling,
Mm.
and she was on the verge of suicidal thoughts and stuff, because
Mm.
she had just got divorced and everything.
Mm.
So for her and for me, I was just like thinking, if someone as big as Katy Perry, like the woman who wrote Firework, who people around the world consider themselves as their empowering anthem, can feel depressed at a point of time, I can too. And if
Yeah.
she can rise up from that, I can too.
I
Like,
can too.
we're all humans at the end of the day. So I use that. I use that as an inspiration. I decided to, like, leave my shit behind, concentrate on academics as I should, and actually pull up my socks, do better,
Mm.
because I was in the eighth grade or ninth grade at that moment, and I had to do
Mm.
well. So it was something that played a very vital role, and I think she still plays a vital role in my life.
Mm.
And I I've seen her live, and she's
Oh, really?
yeah, I
Where?
think I've seen her live twice.
Uh-huh.
One was, I think, in 2018 when I went to Bangkok. I
Uh,
had forced my dad. I was like, I want to go see her,
uh-huh.
and I had got VIP seats, and she was like just about arm's reach from me. So
Oh,
yeah, and
man.
so there was this moment in the concert where she looked at me and she did that, and I was
Ah.
like, what is this happening right now? And then people are like, yeah, she waved at you. And oh god, I was about to faint. And yeah, it was a nice it was a lovely experience. And then fast forward to 2019, I saw her in Mumbai.
Mm.
So that was, it's always a beautiful thing to, like, be there and, like,
Yeah, I
be
know.
surrounded by that music that you grew up with, and
Basically.
scream your lungs out to,
Mm.
like, lyrics and everything with the
Right.
crowd, and, like, know that
Yeah.
she's actually listening to you. So yeah, that was a pretty cool moment, and I think she will always play a vital role in my life because
Right.
of that. To know that she pulled me out of some place where uh, I didn't want to be in that
Right.
moment.
Yeah. Basically, just
So
bringing you out from the dead, and then finally she just waves at you.
right, right. It was
Man,
years in the making, but sure.
dude. No, seriously, this is so powerful. Because, these people, they don't know. I mean, they
Right.
surely are just releasing hits after hits and music and so powerful music. For them, it's like, being part of an art, being just a part of being an artist. But, someone, I have heard quite a lot of such stories like you narrated, right? Where they basically these artists influence and play a great deal, play such a great role in bringing them back from such certain slump that they face in their lives, and this is
Yes.
so powerful. And it would be, so great if they knew in
Yeah.
real time how many people are getting influenced by that.
Right.
It's just one, I hear it from you, but I'm sure there would be many
Yeah.
people who would be like, hey, Katy Perry influenced me, her music actually brought me back from the dead.
Right.
So that's really powerful to know. And then she waved at you. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, so cute. uh right. So apart from recording your originals, I know you're part of being a singer is also to perform at live events, right, across the
Yeah.
venues and stuff. So uh before the pandemic, I'm sure you would have had such experiences. And you, to your point where you said that you had stage fright, how do you deal with that when you go and perform in venues, colleges and all of that stuff?
Right.
Yeah.
So the stage fright actually is very imminent, and
Hmm.
it's also there when a person in front of me thinks that, oh wow, he's being very confident and stuff. But
Hmm.
no, I'm not. I'm actually literally shaking in my own place.
Right.
And there was this breaking point actually in 2019 when I was in college. There was this event. I was actually with my two friends out there, my two classmates who were guitarists, and we were just like singing Jason Mraz, I'm Yours, and like Maroon 5, Lost Stars, and stuff like that. And there was this moment where I decided, like, you know what, to hell with my stage fright. I just lifted up the mic and I started belting. So, and I heard the crowd actually shout back at me, like, like cheer me on. And that actually made me realize that, I just need to control the crowd for that. So for my
Uh-huh.
stage fright to be gone. And in that moment, I didn't feel any kind of fright, not even a bit.
Mhm.
So, yeah, the pandemic did screw up a lot of things, a lot of opportunities. But otherwise, I would just consider myself lucky that, I do have this time that to record other stuff and like, plan other ventures, um, which is good. And I don't think I haven't performed much, like a lot, as
Mhm.
people would assume. It was just, short 2 or 3 gigs here and there. And I just
Mhm.
had like, about 4 gigs with my band and stuff. So that was cool. And then I had a lot of events at college,
Mhm.
which was a great kind of like a thing to just put me out there.
Right. And how would you say your degree in sound engineering, went a
Right.
long way in influencing your music career? Like what role did it play in your career in music?
So I would say, just like being in the sound engineering course, it kind of made me realize that how I can operate stuff
Hmm.
rather than go to a studio and pay like thousands of bucks just like to have
Yeah.
like an hour of studio time. So now I just have like a mic at home, like my interface and my laptop, and I just record at home. And like my entire album, like the past 3 albums basically, have all been recorded at home. And
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty cool. And I did learn a lot, and it was a learning experience. Like I had a lot of days where we went busking actually
Hmm.
with our classmates, and we went to like Brigade Road and Indranagar and stuff, and we just sang on the streets
Hmm.
until the cops came and chased us out. So that was an experience as well. It was good because we met a lot of I met a lot of other musicians, other people who are songwriters
Hmm.
and better singers and instrumentalists. So it was a great exposure for me, I would say,
Hmm.
rather than like just being enclosed in like my 4 walls and everything. Yeah.
Right. So I believe that this is a relatively fresh degree out there, sound engineering. It's new to the academic landscape. So if you were to tell about this a little about this to other people who are still figuring out what they need to do, how would you
Right.
say sound engineering? Like, how is it? Just to brief people on that, so that they know and can make an informed choice later.
I would say it's the closest kind of a degree that you can have if you have a passion for music.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a producer, sound engineering. If you want to be like a live sound engineer, sound engineering. You want to be a
Mm-hmm.
singer, songwriter, sound engineering. Trust me, this is going to help you like days to come, years later also.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't like the physics kind of teachers who tell you like hey, you know what, this is going to be there in your life when you learn this. But no, actually this is something that if you choose music as a passion, this is like the closest thing where you can actually get a degree and be
Mm-hmm.
happy with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's close to music. So
Right.
you're getting a degree, so satisfying your parents,
Yeah.
being the Indian families. And you're getting to do what you want. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would say that's something that can actually help with people understanding that.
Right. Now that's interesting. When my brother said that he has exposure to the film industry as well, if he does well,
Right.
then I was like, wow, why are you not leveraging this? Why are you just lazing around and wasting your time? But yeah,
Right.
I guess everyone
He's a
takes
cool
their
guy.
time.
Yeah.
You would know. I just know him as my annoying little brother.
As
Yeah.
every sibling does.
Yes. So, okay, Dave. So you launched your debut album Silhouette in 2018,
Yes.
and 1 million streams later in June 2021. I'm so glad that I was there to see it, because we had recently gotten connected over the
Right.
social media. So I saw it and like 1 million views. Wow, like cumulative views.
Yeah.
And so it obviously has been a great journey for you. To
It
list
has. It
out a
has.
few achievements while you were, there was for a while you were sitting amongst Taylor Swift, Lord,
Right.
and LDR, my favorite. She's my queen on Apple
Yeah,
charts.
thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
right. And then your album God Complex quickly garnered around 250K streams and
Right.
still going strong. And
Right.
then your song Aftertaste won an award for the best mix song from your album Blue Blood. That's a lot. That's like a lot for how long did it take? It 3 years, right?
Yeah,
So
about
2018 to
3 years. Yeah.
21. Yeah, this
Right.
is quite an achievement. And to sit among
Thank
these
you.
people in on Apple charts,
I
especially on
almost
Apple
fainted
charts.
that day. I
So how
almost
was that
fainted
day
that
for
day.
you? Yeah, to talk a little about
So
that day.
so it was like a normal day. I had just finished like a viva on one of my subjects in
Uh-huh.
college,
Uh-huh.
and this was our final semester viva. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm done. I did really well. My professor had actually liked the song that I had submitted for
Mhm.
the viva, and I just decided to go on this app that I had, and I just checked up the stats, and
Mhm.
it said your album had debuted at this
Mhm.
and this number, and it had peaked at this number. And I was like, am I seeing this right? Because it says it's number 23 at
Yes.
alternative albums in India.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, this cannot be possible. But it was. And then I just like checked up the whole list, and I was like, wow. Like my album charted higher than like Lana Del Rey. And I was like,
Ah.
goodness. Like someone who I look up to like so much.
Oh, she's a
And
beauty. Yeah.
I
I
think
would
she's
swear allegiance to her in a heartbeat. It's
same
like I
here.
love her so much.
I swear to God
Yeah.
I would. So her music has actually played a vital role too. Like I did not want to be an alternative artist. I wanted to be a
Uh-huh.
pop star.
Uh-huh.
So when I started listening to her stuff, I was binge listening to her, like
Hmm.
Born to Die and Ultraviolence and Honeymoon, the new albums Lust for Life and everything else. So I kind of I dove into her songwriting process and what her
Mm.
mindset was.
Mm.
So that day when I actually found that my album was actually charting higher than Lana Del Rey, I was like, goodness, can this be true? And then I showed it to my mom, because she's the first person who I actually
Mm.
just out of
Mm.
excitement I was like, ma, look, I just got this. So it was a very very cool day, and then after that it just kept rolling in, like details of like okay, this EP charted at this number, the
Mhm.
deluxe edition of the album charted at this number, and I was like,
Mhm.
it's getting too much for me. Like I can't even keep my happiness in. Like it was
Right.
everywhere.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I just celebrated. I had some pizza,
Mm.
uh, as everyone should. A little bit of cake here and there.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that was something that I did.
Right. Are we trying to act conservative here? Are you sure you didn't drink? You didn't go out and get busted?
I see. You know what? I would, but here everything is like all closed up here. So it's
Uh-huh.
all takeaways, and I
Hmm.
wouldn't want to come home and
Oh,
drink.
okay. This was during the pandemic, is it?
Yeah, this was like a few weeks back, I guess. So
Oh,
this was somewhere in
okay.
June. So there was a lockdown initiated here.
Right.
So
Okay.
and they still don't let you come and drink out there. So that's
Uh-huh.
yeah. I
That
I
that
I
sucks.
recently started. So that was like something
Mm.
that my mom was a bit shocked.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think I do hold a lot of shock value these days.
A lot of it. Speaking to you in this podcast itself, I've just seen so many points that you have just dropped some
Right.
bombs. Anyway, so from 2018 to this point, right?
Right.
What are the things? What do you think has changed in terms of getting better, in terms of lessons learned, in terms of quality of people that you have collaborated with? How would you say your journey has progressed it, and what is the delta that you observe? What are the things that you're like, okay, it's 20 back in 2018 it was like this, but in 2021 it turned out to be like this?
Right.
Anything. So how has it been like you in these 3 years? How have
So
things
I think
shifted?
over these 3 years, I think I can attack a subject much better. I can reach a point of subject much better.
Hmm.
I realized that professional and personal have to be completely separate.
Uh-huh.
You do not have to involve someone from your personal life into your professional life, because that
Hmm.
just messes up everything.
Hmm.
And branching out has been something that was very key to me, and it was a good thing that I did. I branched out with a lot of different people, a lot of different songwriters, a lot of different producers, and it kind of gave me a learning experience to actually know that uh, things are different.
Hmm.
People have a different point of view. People have a different perspective, nonetheless. and it's not always going to be like, hey, you know what, this person says you're right, so you are right.
Mm-hmm.
Another person can say, you're wrong, maybe your approach to this thing is wrong. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was good to have an unbiased ear,
Mm.
someone who can actually, people who can actually tell me the truth rather than just be like yes men, just say, yeah, you're doing right.
Right.
So it was,
Yeah.
I think, that learning process, and I think mostly it's betterment of my songwriting, betterment of my vocal range, and also, yeah, learning that professional and personal have to be separate.
Right. Okay. You keep harping on this. Do you have any particular example that you are comfortable talking about,
uh,
or?
I mean, I'm just saying that out of like,
Uh,
people try to be your managers,
oh, okay.
yeah,
Right.
and they
Uh-huh.
can be like friends,
Hmm.
friends that and you can't take that risk, because if things go sour, like
Mhm.
God forbid things go sour, uh, you don't want to have that, you don't want to lose that friend, first of all, and if
Yes.
you lose that friend, you don't want to lose uh, basically your career. Like they
Hmm.
can tarnish your name any kind of way. They can just go tell another producer that you want to work with, that hey, you know what, this guy's not good, don't work with him.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's things like that. I mean, it didn't
Mm-hmm.
happen to me, but I'm just saying that you have to learn from like artists as well, and
Mm-hmm.
in your life as well, that you have to differentiate these two
Mm.
from each other,
Right.
and you can't involve these two at all at any moment.
Mm-hmm. No, that's powerful. And please, aspiring artists, please take notes. This is like powerful to know. So, how does the process of releasing an album look like for you? Like right from the point of conceiving the idea that you want to
Right,
push out there, whether it's a taboo subject or whatever it is,
right.
to materializing it, to promoting it, and finally seeing it, on a single digit spots or double digit
Yeah,
spots
yeah.
on the music charts. How does that process look like for you, for Dave?
So my previous albums, I would say the first, second, third, and fourth were very planned out. They were,
Mhm.
I mean, my fifth album also was very planned out. But
Mhm.
these albums, they had like a single first.
Mhm.
They would have
Mhm.
a second single. They would have a third single. They would have a fourth single, and then the
Mhm.
album would come out.
Mhm.
So it kind of the singles alluded to the album. It
Mhm.
wasn't just like bang on, here's an album.
Mhm.
So in that kind of process, the first few albums that I put out, I used to think like, okay, which song would the people like to listen to?
Mhm.
You have to think about like, would they listen to this emotionally, or would they listen to it in a very consumer kind of way, like just like blasting headphones and
Yeah.
just like
Mhm.
a walk in the park kind of thing.
Mhm.
So you have to think of that, and you have to think of the placement of the tracks, and you have to think of a good catchy cover art that people can actually relate to,
Mhm.
and just not something like like I call my album like Memphis or something, and just like have like a picture of a flower or something, like
Yeah.
that makes no sense.
Yeah.
So it should be something that I feel that should be relatable. And I think with my first album, I had actually gone for a remote job in like Kolhapur once,
Mhm.
and this happened to be like a day off where all of our coworkers and everyone had actually gone out,
Mhm.
and one of my colleagues just decided to snap a picture of me, and this picture was actually in color, but I turned it to black and white, and that made the cover art.
Mhm.
So it was things like that. And my second album, Blue Blood, I kind of had this idea that instead of red, like the color of the blood, it's actually blue, because I believe that blue is a color of sadness, and blue is also a color of and it's serenity and peace sometimes.
Ah, right.
But I do, I mean, because of Lana Del Rey, I kind of chose blue to be my color of sadness.
Uh-huh.
So I just wanted it to be something that and for me, it was in the back of my head, I was thinking, well, what kind of thing would you actually use to convey the message of the blood being blue?
Mhm.
So I had spoken to my friend who's also a photographer, and
Mhm.
he was like, dude, I do have an idea, but let me know yours too.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, the only organ that pumps blood in the body is the heart. So I just like, okay, what about a hand holding a heart and it's like blue blood dripping all over?
Ah,
So
yeah.
he was like, dude, this idea is sick, you got to work on it. And I was like, yeah. And then I did, and that made the album.
Mhm.
So it's the planning of the cover arts, and who you work with, who you have as a featured artist, who you have as a songwriter, things like that. I actually have to plan out a lot. I think if you ask me right now, like today is like July and 2021, I actually know when my next album is going to come out.
Oh.
So I'm that processed in my head, and when being that processed in my head, I actually have to follow through with that. So I have very strict deadlines for myself, and it drives people crazy to work with me. Actually, they'll be like, dude, this is crazy, how do you plan on doing this? And I'll be like, you have to do this at this point of time, and to make sure that it alludes to whatever you want at the end. It's a scary world to be in my head, but
no, I think it's also important, Dave, because once you've chosen something as a career, when you're your own boss, when you're
right.
Driving things for yourself, I think it's
Right.
very important for you to be organized in that sense as well, to to know what you want, because this is not something you're on your own. No one's driving, no one's creating schedules for you, no one's doing anything. You have to do that.
Right.
So it's very understandable if you're a little neurotic about it, because
Right.
you need to get results. It's not like everyone else who's having a day job like I am, and everything else is just figured. I have to just do one thing that I'm told to do. But
Right.
if you are independently working for something, then I think you have to be, and you have to be very organized, you have to be very stringent with everything.
Right.
And if it comes at a price of being neurotic, so be it, it's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
this
and
is how great stuff gets produced.
so I think I remember this moment very clearly, because I get really bossy when I need to get my work done. And I think I actually lashed out on my photographer once, the guy who actually works on my cover arts and stuff. So I was discussing very intently about my second album and how I plan to, like, have music videos and like shoots and stuff. And this guy was going on talking to another person, and I just slammed the table and I was like, when I talk, you listen. And he was like, yes, boss. So and then I realized what I had done, and I was like, dude, I'm really sorry, because it's kind of crazy, because I have this sorted out, and to have those deadlines not met, I consider that as a failure. Like, I set myself up for failure. So that I consider as I don't know if it's a bad trait, but I do, keep that cycle in my head. Like, let's say I was supposed to actually release my fifth album in Feb, but it got prolonged. I had a lot of issues, and it came out in April. So, I did consider myself a failure at that moment. So, it was scary to deal with at that moment. So, yeah.
No, but one thing I gotta ask, does getting delayed in the process of releasing your album actually cost you anything tangibly, or it's just in your mind that you feel like you haven't
It's
been
in my
able to
mind.
meet something?
It's
Oh, that's a
all in my
different thing
mind.
then. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a
See, like,
completely different thing.
it's
Yeah.
all in my mind. Like,
Uh-huh.
I just wish there was actually something very tangible that I could actually consider myself losing out, and then be like,
Uh-huh.
oh yeah, I actually lost out something.
Uh-huh.
That's bad.
That
But
would make
it's rather
sense.
just like, yeah, these are kind
Right.
of things that keep me up at night. Just be like, damn it, I wish I released at this moment, and I wish I had done this, or I wish I had done it this way. Things like that. So it's crazy, but also I like how it turns out at the end. So
Yes,
I'm
that
still
does.
glad nonetheless.
But I feel like, in your world, and I don't mean to preach or anything, I'm just saying that in your world, collaborations matter a lot. So in case there is a delay by any, like, how would you actually, deal with it in a very healthy way? Like, would you consider developing like a healthy approach towards this? Because I feel like in your area, losing out on relationships, losing out on collaborations is something that will even prove to be even more costly. So
Right.
when
Yes.
you have something planned out, and sometimes for some reasons or uncertain things, it doesn't get met out.
Right.
How would you actually, if you were to think about it, how would you actually deal with it in a way that it creates a win-win for both the parties, you as
Right.
well as the other person as well? No, I mean,
um
that's definitely not a thing that you need to answer
yeah.
now, but I think,
No,
yeah.
I mean, I don't think I look at it as a win-win for both of us, but I would say, like, how I would actually get out of rather just feeling bad for myself for not having that collaboration on time, like,
Yes.
feeling bad that I had lost a relationship over this period of time. So I think when something like that happens, I actually tend to work on other music. So, which is
Okay.
really weird. I think the biggest scene that the kind of scenario that happened was in 2019. I
Mhm.
had released this song from my Blue Blood album that was called Dancing in the Dark way
Mhm.
back in Feb of
Mhm.
2019. And the actual album actually came out in November.
Mhm.
So there was a huge delay. Like there was 15 songs packed and there was only just one song released. And my
Oh.
album was supposed to come out somewhere in August, but
Mhm.
it didn't pan out. And I decided that I'd work on something else, and
Mhm.
I made my video-based EP. I
Mhm.
shot it and
Mhm.
I put it out in August, and that bought me a little more time to work on an album.
Right.
So it was pretty cool, and it did see the light of day at one point in time.
Okay, that's good to hear that you're very hardworking and dedicated towards this. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So, is there any monetary value in the kind at the scale at which you're, producing music right after,
Right.
like hit after hit? It's very good music. I'm just telling you because I've heard
Thank
it.
you. Thank
Is
you.
there any monetary value at your scale when you perform, when you get like 1 million streams? And I know it is from different platforms, it's a
Right. Right.
cumulative, yeah, but
Right.
at your scale, do they consider you and be like, hey, we're going to pay you because you're adding value to our platform as well, because a lot of people are being pulled to it.
Right.
uh, how does that work in?
So the thing is, Spotify, I would say, just considers me as a normal artist,
Acha.
someone who is not as big, and I
Mm,
don't have like a label recognition and stuff like that. So
mm, mm,
there's the whole deal of like having like Spotify playlists and like being featured on like today's top hits and stuff like that
mm,
is way out of the question.
mm,
So I think that labels do play a vital role, and yes, we do get paid. Artists do get paid. I have got paid, but it's not as big as people would think. Like you
uh-huh.
think for a million streams, you would have like thousands of dollars and stuff, but
Mm,
it's
mm,
it's not at all in that case.
mm.
And it's a hard process,
It
but
is. Yeah.
I'm just doing this for the hell of it. Like I want my music to be out there and to
Mm,
survive through my entire life. So that's something that I would prefer rather than like thinking of the monetary value it holds.
mm, mm.
Sure, it's a gain at the end of the day, but is that what I'm looking for? No.
Not your primary goal.
Right.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
take care of itself, right?
Right.
uh no, that's fine. I mean, if that works for you, but what do you think? See, obviously, I'm what I'm understanding is that once you get a label, it becomes easy for you to earn
Right.
through your
Right.
music, right? But what I've heard from my brother and other aspiring artists as well, that labels come, get in the way of your creative process. And I do not
Yes.
know if you want to talk about this or not, because you
I
exactly,
don't
this is
mind.
exactly what you want. But they come, so for what happened with Martin Garrix, right? I've heard that
Yeah.
the labels were like being a little too stringent and a little too nosy in that process.
Yeah.
How do artists balance that? I mean, if you have any idea about that kind of a thing, like label may, you have recognition, you have money,
Right.
but independence, when you are, sort of going independent as an independent artist on YouTube or
Right.
whatever platform, it's more of, your own hard work. But then, there are a lot of trade-offs in that as well. So yeah, how do you look at that entire thing?
So as an artist myself, as like a budding artist myself, I would
Mhm.
say the first thing that you need to do if you have like hopes of getting signed to a label,
Mm.
get a good lawyer.
Okay.
And have
uh,
a good manager, have someone who can actually a manager that can understand your creative process and your
mhm,
creativity and the whole idea of like who you are
mhm,
as an artist, rather than
mhm,
like who the label can make you out of, just be an industry plant.
mhm,
So it's things like that. And the main thing an artist should know if they ever get a deal is
mhm,
read the contract,
mhm.
go
Yeah.
through with it, take weeks if you need to, just
Uh-huh.
consult lawyers, consult managers, consult peers,
Mhm,
uh, read through every kind of if and abouts and if and buts and everything. Just
mhm,
get it through, make sure that you have a say in it too,
mhm, mhm,
because at the end of the day, if you say no to a label and walk out, you still have
mhm.
your dignity, you still have your creative process, and no one can take the that credit from you. So
Sure.
I feel that's the balance that should be there.
Mhm,
And labels, yes, they are very stringent on like changing the artist completely.
Hmm.
So that's a sad part about labels. And now they just industry plant wanting people. So that's a bad negative thing.
Right. I feel like, I don't know, I do not have expert level insight into this, but then I do
Uh-huh.
feel like they try to make you more commercialized as opposed to,
Yes,
actually
yes,
giving you the creative expression,
yes.
freedom of creative expression, right? So yeah, that's there. I mean, yeah, let's just
They,
see
I
how.
think
Yeah.
it's more like they make you write songs that you don't want to write about. Like,
Hmm.
I couldn't, to be honest, I couldn't imagine Lana Del Rey writing like a song about disco and like partying and stuff and things like that. I mean, I know she
Never.
does party and stuff, but I
Uh-huh.
can't imagine her just talking about like discos and like
Mm-hmm.
upbeat trap music and
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
So it's things like that, and labels actually force you to do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So collaborate with people you don't want to work with, or people who you don't even know, just because they are the it people right now.
Mm-hmm.
um, so it's things like that that I go against with the labels. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, building up on my point on creative expression, what do you think are some barriers to it, to creative expressions that you face on a personal level, and how do you navigate your way out of them and see the light? So while producing your own music, you might be facing a lot of personal barriers, whether it's
Right,
creative blocks or anything. So how do you
right.
deal with all those things? How does that
um,
look for you?
so I think the worst block any artist can have is themselves.
Uh-huh.
Their thought process of like thinking, hey, you know what, this line sounds too cheesy, or this line sounds too attacking to the person I'm writing it about,
Mm-hmm.
or this song makes it seem like I'm playing the victim, but actually I'm the villain, but things like that. And artists, I think in general, songwriters, when they think like this, they put themselves as a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
So that plays a very big role in like putting them down. And then comes the whole writer's block and the producer's block. And honestly, I thank God I haven't had the writer's block for a long time. I think the max that I had writer's block was last year. I think it was over for about 2 months. I couldn't even write anything. I had zero ideas. I couldn't work on sentences that I had. Um, so it was, I think writer's block is one thing that artists can face. But for me, I think when I have that, I usually watch old movies. I listen to really old songs. I read books a little,
Mm-hmm.
not a lot, but a
Mm-hmm.
little.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of gets me flowing with my words. So it's
Right.
something that I would just like pen down.
Mm-hmm.
And in a producer's block, I don't think I have had that per se, because I'm not that much of a producer. I think I started producing from my second album only.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a slow process. I'm still learning how to get better. Still learning how to like record instruments much better. So I think that way is good. But otherwise, artists in general, themselves.
Right.
Because
Uh-huh.
you have to stop
Yes.
thinking about how people would take your message. And
Mm-hmm.
because if you're talking about your life at the end of the day, you have to stop
Mm.
and think that, hey, this is my life. You can't tell me how to live. And
Yes,
if
exactly.
you don't get the message from my life, I'm sorry, you can just take a juke hike. Of all I
Uh-huh.
care.
Uh-huh.
So that's one thing that I firmly believe in, and I do come about my block whatever I have.
Mm.
But have I had days criticizing myself? Yes, a lot.
Mm.
I'll be like, no, this sounds too explicit. It shouldn't
Mm.
be out there. And what will my mom think?
Mm-hmm.
What will my friends' mothers think? It's things like that, because I do have this good boy image with most of my friends and families.
Mm.
So I don't want them to be like, oh shish, this guy is off the hook. So there's always that thought.
Right. Wow. So, are there any songs that are inspired by very strong personal experiences, which were like, hey,
Yes,
this
yes.
experience is too powerful for me and I need to let it out in form of music? So,
Yes. So I think the recent album, wow, okay. The recent album that I put out was, I was having this really tough relationship,
mm,
and things weren't going exactly as fruity as people would in the movies rather have.
mm,
So I couldn't tell the person like this is how I feel.
mm,
Uh, how are you going to react? Because there's always that fear like what will that person react to?
mm,
How will the person react to your thought of this and that, and your insecurities your own way, and my thoughts about their insecurities and stuff. So it was bad, and I got to a point where I had to be medicated and
Whoa.
taken care of. Yeah.
Mm.
It got really serious, and so I was recording a lot, I was
Mhm.
writing a lot during the pandemic, and I think by 2020 I had actually planned that my fifth album is going to have these many songs, and it's going to be called God Complex. And
Oh.
people kept asking me, yeah, what does it mean, like what are you trying to say? And I do know that 95% of the songs are very attacking on that
Mhm.
album.
Mhm.
And I know for a fact that the person that I wrote it about didn't actually listen to it, or maybe has. Otherwise I would have got like an angry email back.
You never know.
So
Yeah.
it's things like that. So yeah, I think it mostly emotions play a key
Big
role
role.
with
Mm.
my songwriting, and I think it's things like that actually push me to like songwriting and stuff.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
if you would see Silhouettes in Blue Blood and the fifth album, it's kind of very much alike, because
Mhm.
they all
Mm.
have emotions, and rather just like not fabricated stuff, and like any kind of cheesy pop song that's, oh yeah, I'm
Right.
club dancing and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, fabrication can be actually spotted by people, when
Exactly.
someone speaks from their own or sings from their own personal experience, then it
Right.
becomes a little more heartfelt for the other person as well. Becomes a little more relatable as well.
Right.
But people are smart enough to know that, this is made up. What the hell,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't relate to it as much. This is amazing. So I'm curious to find out the life philosophy or the pillars that drive people, right? So
Mhm.
something that you resort to when the goings get tough. What are those pillars for you? What is that life philosophy and those foundational pillars that that no matter how tough life gets, this is
Yeah.
going to be my resort, not an escape, my resort, because this is going to provide me the strength to deal with other situations, or these difficult situations in the future. So how does that look for you?
So I think when something like that happens, when I go really dark, and I don't know if I can find my way out back,
Mm-hmm.
there's this. I think I speak for all musicians when I say this, that they do find solace and a beacon of light, just with that, just the holding of a hand of like music.
Mm-hmm.
Be it whatever form, you can be listening to music. Usually what happens with me is when I find myself in a place like that, I would actually turn on my speaker, play songs, and I would sing my heart out. Like I would just yell, like in tune, obviously, not just like out of tune, sounding like Kermit the Frog,
Mm.
but I would do things like that, and that would build up. I would keep listening to a lot of music, just continuously, and it would go to a point where I would actually close myself up,
Mhm.
in not just physically, just in a room, like just mentally closed, physically closed in a room, and I would just shut myself off for some time until I can actually think that, okay, you know what, now it's okay to step out,
Right.
and it's okay to face the world, and it's fine. Everyone
Mhm.
has to go through this some point or the other. So I think yes, and the best kind of cliched thing I would say is, um, I found this music video part in Taylor Swift's Cardigan, actually.
I love
Where
that song.
she's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Uh-huh.
beautiful song, and the music video has a beautiful message, because when whatever happens, she still finds the piano.
Mhm.
When she's sitting in that green
Mhm.
place, she has the
Mhm.
piano. When she's in the storm, she finds the piano. And
Ah.
I take that as a literal message that whatever storm or whatever happiness comes into your life, music can still hold you.
Mhm.
And that's like a universal language that I prefer to like take on. I know I might sound like all preachy and like all you know gyan guru kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So
No,
yeah,
absolutely
just
not. Yeah. No, you're not sounding like that. Right.
so that was something that I related to, and I kind of took
Mhm.
that to heart. And yeah, I
Mhm.
think that speaks for all musicians.
Yes. So you're what, 21, 22 right
I'm
now?
22. I
Yeah.
recently turned 22.
So I am always interested to know about, there is one thing that people learn things. That is one
Right.
thing, right? what have you unlearned during these years? There are certain notions that we hold on, like dear life, and but something happens as we go through our experiences, as we go through time. Something happens, and then those beliefs, those notions get shattered, right? So
Yeah.
what are those things that you have unlearned over the time, and be like, I was holding on to them, but I've got to let them go because they won't let me progress
Right.
further. So how does that look for you?
So I have unlearned that um, not all friends stick around.
Yeah, sure.
I
Definitely.
mean, not everything happens for a good reason,
Uh-huh.
and there's not always a God's plan.
Mhm.
There's there's things like you have to. I've unlearned to actually not unlearned. I would say I've learned to let my anger go
Mhm.
at point of times. So I've learned to actually consider myself much more vulnerable at point of times, rather than be like, you know what, hey, no, you're actually strong, you don't have to think that you're weak and stuff.
Yeah. Mhm.
So there's that stigma that follows with the
Mm.
society, and that men or boys can't be like strong, they
True.
have to be
So true.
strong, they
Yeah.
can't be weak, or they can't shed a tear. Like
Mhm.
i
Mhm.
I do fail to see why that's something that's prevalent, because
Mhm.
we all are human, we all cry, we all shed tears. And a guy hiding feelings, that if he's going through something and crying out sometimes, is not going to change how he is for people. It
Mhm.
just shows
Mhm.
that he's much more human. So I
Right.
think I've learned to, like, let go of stigma like that, and brace it, rather than, like, be like, oh no, I'm all tough, I have to be macho
Mhm.
and stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's something that I've
This
learned
is
over the years.
so powerful that you bring it up, Dave, because a lot of my friends have been facing that with their boyfriends, actually, that problem that they say that they
They
don't
don't open up.
communicate, they
Yes.
don't open up. And their relationships are all good from the boys' side. The
Right.
only problem is the communication. They're like, hey,
Right.
we don't get anything from them. We want to be there for them. We want to know what's going on in their heads. And I know
Right.
that women can be a little too expressive, like
Right.
to a point that it can be annoying. I understand, but there's a fine balance, I guess. Both
Yeah.
women and men can achieve that.
Yeah, they both
And
have their own days. Yeah.
right, so this is like a problem, and I think you can hope, I hope you can serve as a beacon to those men that,
I
hey,
hope so too.
embrace your masculine as well as your feminine energy,
I
right?
I I feel
Yeah.
actually much better since I've done that. Like years back, since
Hmm.
I have done that, I feel that people tend to understand me much better, rather than, like, being like, why are you shutting yourself off? And
Right. Uh-huh.
be it friends, or like even relationships and family
Hmm.
members and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So uh, it's kind of a process. It's a long process, I'm not going to
It
deny that,
is.
and it's a tough one to actually break a stigma like that. I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
have completely broken that. I still
Mm-hmm.
have thoughts in my head, like, hey, maybe you're just acting a little too, you know too kind of dull,
Hmm.
and like you're just being a dud for the moment. Why do you need to be all emotional and stuff?
Uh-huh.
You don't have to be this way. Just like laugh it off, and just, like, have a drink or something like that. So it's those kind of haunting thoughts at the back of my mind that be like, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. And uh, I think it's high time that we actually had a conversation
Change
with
that.
people that it
Yes.
should be
No.
changed. And that stigma should be long gone from this society.
Yes, long gone actually. Because again, I keep on saying that 21st century, dude. Why is
Exactly.
sex a taboo? Why are men not
See,
communicating enough? Man,
right.
we gotta change this. This is so powerful to know, Dave.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad that you brought this up. There's
Thank
some
you.
things that you have to unlearn, and I'm sure for most of the men out there, or even for most of the people who are just a little unexpressive, it
Right.
can be a difficult thing. But you need to find someone that you can trust, or not. I'm not saying that it's sometimes you don't find anyone that you can trust, but then you have to let go of that stigma somewhere. Be
Yes.
like,
Yes.
hey, let me make a small attempt at least, and then see
Right.
how it, instead of being like, I'm just gonna just close myself up and not gonna do anything.
Right.
So no, this is very powerful that you bring it up.
Thank you.
And you want to continue with any other things that you have unlearned,
Oh
because we
no.
got a
I
little
mean,
too much into this topic.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say, yeah, that's about it. But,
Hmm.
like, I think that played a main role in, like, people perceiving me.
Right.
So
Mm.
yeah, you don't want to be always like a stone being thrown about and stuff like that. Just
Yeah.
uh, people, you don't appreciate a stone being thrown at you, do you? So
No.
you have to just, yeah, you would rather have like a sponge ball thrown at you and things like that. So it's okay to be soft sometimes. It's okay to be understanding. It's okay to go to like a pet and talk in your pet voice and
Yeah.
things like that.
Oh my
It's
God.
it's
Yes.
weird that people think that oh my God, why are you talking to your pet like that? I'm like, dude, that's my pet.
Much more than that, what I get is like, why don't you talk to us like that? And why are you talking
Oh
to pets
yeah,
like that? I'm
right,
like,
right,
you don't
right.
deserve that. They do.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
they
not
do,
gonna
they do.
question my love for them, right?
Exactly.
But you're gonna be like, what do you want? Why are you acting so loving all of a sudden?
See,
Yeah, so that's very important. um so what are your plans next? Like you said that you would be dropping an album. Are you comfortable talking about what you want to do in the future, or?
I am working on my sixth and seventh album
Mm-hmm,
uh,
mm-hmm.
together.
Right.
So I don't have a date when I might drop it, but
Mm-hmm.
I do have a lot of surprises up my sleeve. So
Okay.
I did like how I played the surprise card with my fifth album. Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody expected me to like drop a single like on April 2nd. I was like, hey, my single drops tonight. Check it
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
April 3rd, I'm like, hey, my new album drops tonight. They were like, what the hell is going on?
Dave is
This
on
is like a
fire.
yeah, this is like a 15-track album that's like dropping in a day.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened, and then my the deluxe edition lead single Freedom just dropped out of nowhere, and
Mm-hmm.
3 days later the deluxe edition dropped out. And so I had this very, I think, I hope it's a good strategy. So I had put out the single and I put out the standard edition of the album, and then a few weeks later I put out Freedom, and then the deluxe edition of the album. So what I had planned before was I would break these songs down into chapters and release them as they go, like
Mm-hmm.
in 2 weeks of each other. So I would
Mm-hmm.
have like a lead single and then 5 songs in a chapter, a lead single, 6 songs in a chapter. So
Right.
that way I had about 5 chapters,
Mm-hmm.
and there were a lot of songs and things like that. And now I have the remixes that have been playing out, and it's been going really good.
It is.
And
It is. One can.
it's
Yeah, it's
yeah,
reflecting in your
it's
songs.
lovely to like actually see the response of
Mm.
people liking an alternative album that's like
Mm.
kind of, not kind of, I would say kind of very sad and angry at the same point. So it's nice to see that people have actually responded and liked the album that much that it's put in like 250,000 streams.
Yeah.
So I did not expect that to happen. Like when I was thinking to put it out, I was thinking like it'd make like 20,000 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I had told my friends who had worked on me with the album that hey dude, this is going to be a surprise drop, so it's not going to do well. And they were like, yeah, let's see about it. And then when I put it out, it did about 20,000 in a week,
In
and
a week.
it blew my
Uh-huh.
mind. I was
Yeah.
like, wow. So it was really crazy for me to just like feel that, and I was so happy that people actually relate to it and streamed it that many times.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
wonderful.
the creative process of this was very tiring. Like I had separate lyrical videos like of I actually took a very long vacation for the past 1 year.
Mm.
So I was traveling around the world and everything. So I had taken bits and clips of like places that I went. So
Mm.
I was in Kashmir last December, and I was in the snow for a long time.
Mm.
So I had taken like few clips of the snow and stuff like that, and I just made lyrical videos out of that. So I kind of used that opportunity also. So that creative process also was very draining,
Right.
uh, to have everything on time, like to have the audios, to have the
Mm.
videos, to have all the lyrics, so that the services can like put them out for people. So I would say, yeah, that was a good process, but also tiring nonetheless, and
It
fruitful.
can be, but fruitful at the end.
Yeah.
Yes, that is so good to know. Um, you would you'd also, Dave is also a good cook. So what what
Yes.
cuisines do you specialize in? Like one can
Uh,
expect in your kitchen with like Dave is gonna
I
make
think just
this.
good South Indian food. Like
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I do love a lot of beef.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that yeah. So that's something that I really love. I do love making a
Beef.
lot of seafood,
Mm-hmm.
like prawns,
Right.
and
I love prawns. Yeah.
yeah. So it's something that I really love, and
Uh-huh.
mostly beef. Yeah,
Beef
and like
is It depends
Yeah,
upon
but
how you cook it, because I
right.
was lucky enough to have like a good quality beef in my life. Thank God that was in the hands of right people. But they say that if you don't cook it right, then it can be
Yeah.
disastrous. But
Yes.
thankfully, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So a lot of people have actually liked the beef that I make, and
Mm-hmm.
I do make a lot of biryani here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the plus point of like cooking. So you don't have to say like, oh, I just boil eggs, and people say you can't consider that cooking. But
It's cooking.
hey, I have biryani here, and like
Right.
okay, yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. But
Okay.
yeah, it's a process nonetheless.
Yeah, I am planning to come to Bangalore in August.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool. That's
I'll
nice.
make sure that I drop by your home because I need
Please
to
do.
taste this.
Please do. Please do.
Yes. Okay, so Dave, that's pretty much all I wanted to ask you. This has been a very interesting podcast. I would
Thank
say
you.
this has to be my favorite because I literally stopped thinking about all the things that I have to ask you. And it was just like one after the other. You kept saying things and I'm like, okay, wow, I've got to
Right.
ask this also. Like everything just connected well. I really
Right.
like what happened
Thank
during the
you.
course of this. And it
Thank
was
you
so
so much.
great knowing you. This is the
Thank you.
second
Same here.
time that
Same here.
we have actually brought in someone who's not in our circle. Basically, I just know you from my
Right.
brother,
Yeah.
right? But we literally spoke for the first time today over the
Right. Right.
podcast, and
Exactly.
it didn't feel awkward at all. It didn't feel
Yeah.
like, yeah,
I'm
it's
glad it did.
yeah, it
So
didn't. It
thank you
didn't.
for
I'm
that.
so glad. I'm so glad that this happened. So I hope you come back because obviously I'd like to track your journey and like
I
to
would
see where
love
you.
to.
Yeah.
I would love to.
So
Thank you so much.
a little more lessons for our for your listeners, for our listeners,
Right.
and everything, your experiences. Just I had so much fun listening to them.
Same
Right, you
here.
have had a very
I had a
interesting journey.
great experience here at
Yes.
this moment. Thank you
And
so
I
much.
wish you all the best for your future
Thank you.
endeavors.
Thank you.
Really banking on you, really counting on you, because I was listening to your music back to back because I had to get into something. I had to be
Right.
like, okay, get into your process, and it was so wonderful just listening to them. I
Thank you.
didn't feel like I was listening to an aspiring artist. It just felt like, okay, this is out there, right? This is someone who's gonna
Right.
make big. So thank
Hopefully.
you for
Thank you.
joining me.
Thank you
It
for
was
having
great,
me.
and I
Thank
hope
you.
to put it up soon. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All right.
See you, Dave.
See
Yep.
you.
Goodbye, everybody.
But that's not what our bodies do. You want me, make me feel that shit. You got me wanting to taste for it. This feeling's overwhelming and I can't seem to fix this. I want you, can't you feel that yet? There's nothing left that can be said. Mess in the head, yeah, that's so true.